We had an interesting church service this morning. During Sabbath school, we had a visitor who had never been there before. And he said he wanted to come in for 5-10 minutes because he had other things to do afterward. But okay, fine, come on in, you're welcome here. And he had an interesting belief. He expressed his belief that God creates both good and evil. Yes, our Sabbath school lesson this quarter from January to March is over the love, justice, and providence of God, the sovereignty of God, basically. And so he expressed his belief. And when the congregation understandably and naturally disagreed with him, he got upset and he left. He said a few things on the way out. It got me thinking, where does the Bible say that God creates both light and darkness, both good and evil? In Isaiah 45:7, the Bible says, I make peace and create evil. But is God literally creating evil? Is this the Calvinistic interpretation of this verse that we're believing in, or is there something else? The Calvinist interpretation basically says that God is in charge of absolutely everything that happens in the world, good or bad. God ordains it all to happen. And this is a very heartless way of interpreting the Bible. God is not willing that the innocent teenage girl should be overpowered and have things forced upon her. No. God is not willing that somebody should have that they should lose their head for being a different skin color, right? These are not God's will. So what does Isaiah 45:7 mean? Well, the word for create, when it says create evil, the word for create in the Hebrew means to shape. It also means to cut down, which I thought was interesting. God cuts down evil. He does not cause it to exist. He does not spring it into existence. So what does it mean? Well, if we take this definition of shape for the word create, and we cross-reference it with Romans 8:28, the Bible says there, God causes all things to work for the good of those who love him. God did not will for you to be abused as a child growing up. God did not will for you to be forcibly, sensually attacked. I have to use TikTok sensitive language. He did not will for that to happen to you. But God in his infinite sovereignty can use that for your good and for his glory. Even though he did not will it to happen, he didn't want you to have to go through those things. You understand? But there's another key aspect here of biblical interpretation that we have to understand. This is called the Hebrew idiom of permission. And what does that mean? Well, it basically lets us know that, take for example, Pharaoh. When Moses went to talk to Pharaoh, the Bible says the Lord hardened his heart. But with using the Hebrew idiom of permission, we understand that to say the Lord allowed Pharaoh's heart to be hardened. But why would he allow evil to happen? Why would he allow Pharaoh's heart to be hardened? You see, God is a God of love. He respects freedom of choice. And there's something called the Great Controversy, meaning that because of Satan's rebellion, you can read about that in Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, and Revelation 12. You see, who we choose to serve is manifest by our actions. Romans 6, if you're a slave of sin, that's who you serve. You serve Satan. And those who choose sin, those who cherish sin, I'm not talking about those who struggle, those who cherish sin, they can cause a series of events to happen where a lot of people get hurt. And that's not God's fault. It's the fault of the human race who chose sin, and the fault of somebody who chose wickedness. Right? You getting attacked, that's not your fault. Understand that clearly, it's not your fault. But some other person who sinned brought about those series of events, and now you've been hurt. Because of the laws of the Great Controversy, God has to do things in a very specific way so that when he destroys sin and sinners once and for all, Revelation 20, because he's doing things the way he is now, sin will never again rise, ever again. It will never exist ever in all of eternity once it is destroyed in totality. And so you see, God does not create evil. He allows it to take place, one, because of those who choose to serve Satan, and he respects their freedom of choice. But also, to make sure that once it's destroyed, it never happens again. You see, we are looking at this world of sin and sorrow, and we see what's happening, and we see the results of the things that is happening. Jesus himself said that in the end, the love of many will grow cold because sin abounds. And so, to understand this topic more clearly and in more depth, I highly, highly recommend you read a book called The Great Controversy. And in this book, it details Bible prophecy from the destruction of Jerusalem until, the millennium, after the millennium, when sin and sinners are completely destroyed and the earth is made completely brand new with no sin. And the beautiful Bible promise of it is how Nahum chapter 1 verse 9 says that sin will never rise again. May you be blessed. May you have a closer relationship with God than ever before.